Welcome to Lever Up Your Life. I'm Nate Barger. I went from prison time and bankruptcy to now owning over $200 million in real estate. I want to show you guys all the mistakes I made so you don't make the same mistakes. It's time you create massive wealth for yourself. Hey guys, how you doing today, man? Welcome up to Lever Up Podcast. We got an amazing guest on the show, Knolly Williams. Welcome to the show, brother.
What's up, Nate? I'm ready to lever up, buddy. I'm ready, man.
Man, you've been levering up your whole life, man. Since you were 12 years old, you've been an entrepreneur. So tell us about that, man. How did you get started being an entrepreneur? What made you want to be an entrepreneur, and where were you at? You've lived a couple different places.
Yeah, I lived quite a few places. My dad was military, but the interesting thing, Nate, my dad came over. My dad was born and raised in the Caribbean. He was born and raised in Trinidad. He came
Wow.
to the he came stateside when he was 18 years old. He came on a tiny little boat, and he was an entrepreneur, man. And so growing up, I watched my mom, and my mom was, they separated when I was about 6 years old. My mom was super bitter, super upset. I reminded her of dad, so I would get beat up by mom, on a routine, because she hated dad and she hated me because I was the offspring. But my mom took us when we were 6 years old, and they separated. But every summer, man, I would spend with my dad. And with dad, dad was an entrepreneur. He did what he was a hustler, man. He never had the big money that we can make now, through social media and through
Yep, yep.
funnels and different ways we do it now. But he always had a wad of money, and I just watched him. So he would hit the flea markets. He made custom jewelry that he created, fashioned, and he had a table and he had game. More than anything, he understood the customer. He knew how to talk to the customer. He knew psychology. He knew how to get in their mind, and he was really good at sales. So I just started watching him, man, and pretty soon he gave me a little section of the table to sell what I wanted to sell. So I
Wow. Now,
started
now,
selling.
what
Yeah,
part of the country was this in, and how old were you then?
this was in Ohio. Okay, so I was in Ohio till I was about 10 years old. Then we
What
moved to
part of
Los Angeles.
Ohio was that in?
Dayton, Dayton, Ohio. Actually, it was outside of Dayton. It was in a little town called Xenia,
No
Xenia, Ohio.
way. No,
Yeah,
Noli, that's where
yeah.
I was in. I went to Ohio Veterans Children's Home. That was the military school I was
Okay,
sent to. I don't know if you ever
okay.
remember that, OVCH.
I've probably seen it, but I don't. It doesn't. I don't recall it right now. But that's it. That was in Xenia.
Xenia, Ohio, yep.
Okay, so you remember there was another little town called Wilberforce. Did you ever go there?
I went to
Right outside of
Wilberforce
Xenia.
back in, how old are you, man?
I'm 52.
Okay, so you remember when, what was that? Ice Cube came to Wilberforce over there and Central State and back in I was in
Yeah,
military school
there you
then.
go. There you go. So my dad graduated Central State University. So did my mom. Graduated Central State. So yeah, it's a small world, bro.
And very small,
Yeah,
man. You had Wilberforce, which
yeah,
was all girls up there, and then you had Central State, which was African American college, man.
yeah,
Got some amazing people
yeah.
coming out of there.
Yep, yep. So my mom went there. She got her bachelor's. Then she went on to get her master's in Cleveland, Ohio, before moving us out to LA, the LA area. So I was about 12 years old when I first started being an entrepreneur and really looking at, because I was like dad's helper. So I would go every weekend. I got tired of seeing him making money. He was stacking. I was like, I need money too. He would pay me. And so he said, okay, what do you want to do? So I got Business Opportunities Magazine. I don't know if you remember that magazine back in the day, but in that magazine, what they were really selling was franchises. I didn't know it at
Mm.
the time, but they were selling like, you know, every two pages would have another opportunity. I'm like, no, I don't really like that one. Oh, I really like this one. So finally, I figured out, man, that I wanted to sell memorabilia from artists, like music artists. So I started a button making company. I would make buttons and I would sell those for
Wow.
$1. Yeah, and so little by little, man, I just love that whole what I call the process of profit. Getting taking 25 cents and turning it into $1. That was just fun to me.
Oh yeah, man. Wow. So you had great margins. So guys, you hear that? Teach your kids to be an entrepreneur, man, in some
Yeah,
capacity.
yeah.
There's so much wealth in this country, man, and so tell us about where you progress from there. So you learn your skills there. You learn margins before anybody thought about college. He's over there running 75% margins on putting buttons out because his dad gave him a table and inspired him. So you guys need to
Yeah,
make sure you're
yeah.
inspiring your kids, man.
It's interesting, Nate, because when I discovered sterling silver jewelry, that had about a 500, 700%, sometimes 1,000% markup.
Wow.
And the jewelry game is a game. Now that's a game. You learn a game. So I got into
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, and that
Do,
was
do
like
you do
very,
you
very
do any
lucrative.
jewelry? Do you still do jewelry?
I don't. I got what got me, man, was Run DMC. I say Run DMC ruined my life.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I heard Sucker MCs and it's like that. I heard the single, and I think I was about 13 at the time, and that was it, man. I said, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna be a rapper. That's it.
My
I'm gonna be rap.
Adidas. Hey, I would
Uh-huh.
like to say that I'm too young to remember that, but
Yeah,
me and you
you
in the
you're a
same
young
age,
man.
brother. So nah,
Are we?
man.
Yes,
So look, man, you kind of went from there, and then you
yeah,
went on and you own the largest Christian rap label in the world.
yeah,
What
yeah.
drew you in there? What got you to that place in your life?
Well, I tell you what happened for me was, from the time I was 13, I started making money, and I love making money. I sold candy in school. I sold newspapers door to door. I started cutting grass till I figured out the manual thing wasn't for me, and I stopped doing that. But my mom would give me $5 every day to go to school for lunch, and I would turn it into $15 to $20 by noon. Every day I did that.
Wow.
And so
Five
little by
dollars a
little,
day?
yeah, she gave me $5 a day. And people tell me now, they're like, man, that's good. But, mom was making good money. She had a master's degree in psychology. She had a good job, but I would look at my dad and he would just work when he wanted to work. He just roll out of
Yeah,
work
yeah, yeah,
weekends,
yeah.
he had the week off. And then mom was going to work every day. She was on the clock. She was, but she was making money. She was banking
Mm-hmm.
pretty good. But I looked at the two. I was like, no, I'm gonna go with Dad's way because I like that better. I like making my own way, my own decisions. So fast forward, I got into trouble. I started selling weed. You don't know nothing about that, Nate.
Nah, hey, man, it was just really you're a product of your environment. So,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
become a
yeah,
hustler. You probably like me,
yeah.
you didn't have a lot of guidance from, I don't know if you did or
No,
not, parents not
I
there
didn't.
so much.
Mm-mm.
And you
I was a
just
latchkey
start,
kid.
huh?
Yeah, I was what they call a latchkey kid. I don't know if you remember that term.
Yep,
You know, you
yep.
you you
Yep.
get
So
home,
latchkey
nobody's home.
kid, absent
Yep,
parents, streets raising
yep,
you. You listening to rap. You thinking it's real.
yep.
And then next thing you know, you want to be a drug dealer.
That's exactly what happened. And so I left home when I was 16. I told my mom, I said, and I remember telling her this, which I've apologized, more than once since then. But I said, I don't need a mom anymore. I'm good. I was 16. I left to go sell. I mean, I left to go live with a buddy of mine. They call him Mini Man. That was his name back then. And his real name was Corey. And I stayed with his mom was hooked on crack, and I was already selling crack cocaine, so I would just pay my rent in crack cocaine, and that was a good arrangement. I was 16. It was the house was crazy. I mean, it was full of teenagers that were high school dropouts, and it was like I call it the land of anything goes.
Now,
And man, that
were
went on.
you still in Dayton at the time?
No, no, we were living in. So we moved to South Central LA when I was 10. And then when we got there, we lived on Marvin Avenue. My mom said, this is crazy. So she moved us to the San Fernando Valley in California. So I grew up in California till I was about 18 years old, and so that's where it was. And if you think about Los Angeles in the 80s,
Man, hey
and you
Nolly,
think
you
about
lucky to be alive, brother. You
no
lucky to
doubt
be
about it.
alive, man.
Yeah, it's no doubt. It's no doubt. The turning point for me was, and I grew up in. My mom would take us to church. We read the scriptures, we read the Bible, but I was like, man, I'm not with that. I don't want nothing to do with that. And it's interesting, Nate, because God pursued me, man, and I got to the point where I was like, leave me alone. Don't you get it? I'm not interested. I want to do my thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And he just kept pursuing me, man. And one day, my buddy Sagloke was his name, and he came and he was like, man, let's go make some money. And I was like, nah, because we sold in the projects, but I worked a 9 to 5. I called it. I worked from 9 o'clock at night till 5 in the morning. I just felt comfortable at night. SAG worked during the day shift. He worked in the daytime in broad daylight. I was like, man, how could you? So he said, man, follow me, let's go. So I went, and anyway, we were making good money. I was like, man, maybe I'm wrong about this. This date thing is, I mean, we were stacking. I made more money in one day than I ever made. And something kept telling me, like, that's it, you good. Let's roll.
Yep.
I was like, nah, this money's flowing. It keeps coming in. So SAG left to go what we call recoup. He was going, we were out of dope. So he was going to the dope house we call it recop or recoup, whatever. And so he had an ounce of dope on him, I think is all he had left. And so when he was leaving, all we heard was freeze. And we saw all we saw was one cop car after another, undercover cop cars pulling into the projects, and there was a bunch of us out selling. I mean, a bunch. And we just started scattering like roaches, man. Like one would run this way and I would run that way. And as a cop would be coming toward me to grab me, Nate, I would see him and I would duck. And I've always been a thin dude. I was a long
Yeah.
distance runner too, you know. So I would duck under him or I'd jump over, and he would catch somebody else because there was so many of us. It's like how many
Mm-hmm.
you on? It's 15 cops against 40 of us, 40 or
Yeah.
50
Yeah.
of us
Yeah.
out there. So I made it to where we call the safe house, the safe place, which was a Catholic church right across the street from the projects. This was in Pacoima, Cali. And
Wow.
so I looked around. I said, "Man, where's Sag?" We claimed cousins back then. I said, "Where's my cousin?" So this girl came up to me. She said, "Oh, your cousin got popped." I said, "What? Sag?" Well, he was out on parole. He already had two cases. He was out on parole for uh for crack sales at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and he basically got 20 to life at that point. And
Wow.
when
20
that
to life
happened,
for an ounce.
what happened was that because he was a repeat,
Yep.
and they had the three
The
strikes
three strike
going.
rules. Yep.
They wanted to make an example out of him. He didn't serve that, but I mean, they gave him I mean, it was his third strike, and so they were making examples out of us back then. And so I looked at it. I had been to juvenile hall, but I'd never been to prison, and I said, this is not my life. I don't want to live this life. I got to change my ways. And so little by little, man, I gave up, and I started just following. I started following after Jesus. I mean,
Wow.
there's no other way
Amen,
to say
man.
it.
That's
Yeah,
awesome, brother.
I had a Bible, man. One of those Bibles you just keep it on the dashboard for insurance. I had one
Oh,
of
yeah, yeah,
those.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So when the
And
cop pulls you over,
so I just
hey,
started
hold on,
reading
hold
it,
on.
man.
Did
Yeah.
you put the fist on the back of the car too?
No, no, no.
You ain't do
Well,
that?
back then, you talking about
Yeah.
back then? That was
Yep.
later. Yeah, that was later. Yeah. But yeah, so my uncle came and visited, man. He said, "Boy, you need to get up out of here. I live in Austin, Texas, and I got a nice house. You can come stay with me for a few weeks, get your life together." And I looked at him. I said, "Man, I'm not going to no Texas. Now look at me."
Look at you now rocking that
Yeah,
hat, man.
look
I
at me
bet you went.
now. Look at me now.
Hey, I bet
Yeah.
you went looking at that hat.
Yeah, I tell you, man, when I arrived in Texas, I saw something, Nate, that I'd never seen before. It was like opportunity, man. I was like, whoa, people live like this. And so I had an overnight bag, like a duffel bag we used to, take back then, and I just never left, man. I was in Texas for 33 years. I
Wow.
was supposed to go for 3 weeks. It was a 3 week trip, and I never left. Canceled my return flight, and I just never went back home. And I
Man.
made a life for myself there, man, and I started getting into rap, started doing Christian rap. Before I knew it, I had a magazine, then I had a record label, then I was bringing on artists. I started with $1,800 that I had raised from family and friends. Just, hey, would you give me money to start my company? $100 here, $50 there, $20 there, 100 there. I had 1,800 bucks, man. With that 1,800, I quit my job that I was working for. I was working for an attorney doing graphic design of all things, and I
Wow.
quit that job and I just started my business, and within 5 years, Nate, I was making 150,000 a month in that business. 150 a
Whoa.
month. Yeah, and I was 29 years old when we got the deal with EMI Capital. Made $2 million that year. So I made my first million by the time I was 29, and I was doing really, really good, I thought. But man, I didn't know what I was doing. I was doing a lot of the right things in the wrong order. My life was out of balance. I was working 12, 15 hours a day, every day, and I lost it all, man. By the time I was 33, and I kept telling my wife, I said, you know what? I got married young. I've been married 30 years. I told my wife, I said, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna keep doing it. We're making good money. It's 150 a month. Soon it's gonna be 300, 500, a million a month. And that never came from me, Nate. So I put in 10 years hard. I call it 10 years of hard labor,
Yep.
and I left with nothing, man, nothing. Filed bankruptcy, foreclosure, you name it. I got it. I had it,
Man,
and I had to reinvent myself at
you
that
know
point.
that's so similar to my story, brother. I was actually 35 when I filed bankruptcy
Mm,
after making, I would estimate, over $15 million selling weed. I
mm,
had
wow,
nothing to show, man.
that's
And I was
wow,
bankrupt. And
wow.
that's when I really had to cry out and lean on God, man. And so sometimes that's what it takes, man. And that's
Yeah,
okay. I wouldn't change that for the world, brother. But I
yeah,
mean, me
that's
and you
true.
got so much in common, man. Um,
It's it's
oh,
it's crazy. Yeah,
hey,
you're
y'all, give
lucky
me
to
my
be alive
cowboy hat,
yourself.
man. So, hey, nah.
Yeah, yeah. When
So,
I
so
got,
now you bankrupt, right? You
mm-hmm.
know, you 33 years old. You
Yep,
bankrupt. You say you were
yep.
33.
I was 33, 33. Yeah,
Chapter
when I lost
seven
it
too,
all.
right? It was Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
Yeah, yeah, straight bankruptcy,
Yep.
straight. Yeah,
Same
and
here, man.
interesting. I worked for my boss was a bankruptcy attorney. When I
Hey, I'll trade you some graphic designs for some work.
I gotta I can't tell you how embarrassing it was, Nate, when I called up my former boss that I had quit the job to go work for myself. And but I was good about it. I gave him 3 months notice. Like my wife was like, "Who does that? You're supposed to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
two
yeah,
weeks." I
yeah,
said, "No,
yeah.
I'm giving him 3 months because I like Mr. Berry. He taught me a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And he was an entrepreneur. And I was helping make him money. I was building his kingdom. And I said, man, I'm gonna step over here and start building my own kingdom. So he actually lent me money to buy my first computer to start my business. And so here I was 10 years later. I went and sat in his office to file bankruptcy. you know,
Wow. Now,
and
had you
so it
paid him
was,
off for the computer? Did you ask him to
I had
put
paid
that?
him off. I
Hey, I
had
was gonna
paid him
say,
off.
because if
Yeah.
not, you can say, "Hey, man, I need you to include yourself in this bankruptcy." No.
No, no,
So
no.
now
And
we
he
at
was, yeah,
33,
yeah,
right?
yep,
That's
yep.
when you get
That's true.
humbled, right? That's when you really get humbled, is when you go
Yeah,
bankrupt, guys. If a lot of
absolutely.
you guys don't know this, I can tell you
Yeah,
this right now. Me and Nolly would rather go through bankruptcy than go
absolutely.
out here and work a W-2 job for 30 years and retire a
No
millionaire.
doubt. What's
Yes.
up? There's no doubt about that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's 100%.
So you're
100.
bankrupt at 33. Your wife, she's
Yeah.
still with you. She's hanging on with
Uh-huh.
you. What's the
Yeah.
plan now, man? You go back, you're working for the attorney.
Yeah, no, no. So no, no, I didn't go back to work. So what happened was I
Oh,
went
you
back
just
to
went
five.
to go get him back. You just went to go get him to retain him to do your bankruptcy.
Yeah,
Got it.
I
Got it.
hired him. I just went to hire him to help me file bankruptcy, and so he did, and so I'm there like, okay, what's next for me? Well, we had a 6,000 square foot home on 10 acres. We were just outside Austin, and in a small town of Round
Wow.
Rock. Now it's kind of a big town, but we had 10 acres, 6,000 square foot home. We had a 1,200 square foot recording studio and a 1,500 square foot office building on the property. Okay, a half acre pond.
So
And so
you went from living in the ghetto to, man. I mean, that's amazing, man.
it was just amazing. And most of the artists, they would fly in, and we had the studio right there on the prop, and they were still in the hood, and they would just look around like, man, this is insane. And it was just all every what God had done. And so we went, and when we sold the prop, we actually were able to sell that house before I had to file. I had filed bankruptcy, filed. I did foreclosure on another property, but that one I was able to get out by the skin of my teeth. And when I saw the commission that I paid the guy to sell it, my Remax guy, um, I saw what I paid him, man, and I said, you know what? Um, that maybe I could do that. You know,
Yeah.
maybe I could do that. I paid him 30 grand to sell my
Wow.
house. I said, maybe I could do that. So I went to him and I said, Jack, his name was Jack McDonald. I said, Jack, you think I can sell houses? And to be honest with you, Nate, I was thinking, man, ain't no black folk out here selling homes. That's what I was thinking. It's a
Yep.
limiting belief, right?
Yep.
I said, Jack, but do any people that look like me sell? He was like, nah. He just started laughing. He said, man, I go to the conventions, and man, there's a lot of people that look like you, man. He said, you can do this, Nolly. So he gave me the encouragement, and I got my license. I reinvented myself in the real estate business, and that's what I did, man. When I was in the music business, I had 14 employees, I had 18 artists. My payroll was 42,000 a month, and I said I'm never going to do that again. I could have done it with 5 people, Nate, but I had 14. Why? Because I could. You know what
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's what I did. I said I'm just going to work for myself. I'm gonna just make my meager ends and I'm good, But man, when you're an entrepreneur, when you do something, you look at the game, when you study the game, you're like, wait a minute. So the average agent was selling 6 to 8 homes a year, and I determined that I was going to do 40 a year. And my coach looked at me. I hired a coach 8 months into the business because I was overwhelmed, and I hired her, started paying her 1,000 a month to just like this time. I said I'm going to have a coach. I'm going to have a mentor because man, I had no coach, no mentor the first time around, and I lost millions because of that. And she told me, she said, Nolly, why don't you make your goal to do 100 deals a year? I said 100 a year. I
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
40
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
She
Yep.
said, I guarantee you that if you do 100 deals a year, you'll work half as much as if you do 40. And I didn't understand it, Nate. I didn't understand leverage back then. But I took her word for it because she had been in the game. She had game. She was a rock star. And that's what I did. So my first year, my second year, I did 80 deals. I think my first year, I did like 40 some deals. But by my third year, I never had a year where I did less than 100 deals. And she was
Wow.
right, man. She was right. I mean, and so by 2009, I was ranked number 7 by Austin Business Journal, uh, out of 9,800 agents that were ranked by Austin Business Journal. My
That's insane,
production,
man.
yeah, my production was number 7 in the city, man. And so, but what I didn't realize, Nate, was everything that I had been doing, man, was out of what I've learned through my coaches since then, of a trauma response. Because my mom would tell me, boy, you'll never amount to anything. You're worthless. I'm sorry I ever had you.
Mm-hmm.
And she would get in, she's bipolar. So she would get in those states of mind, man. And sometimes it would be real good. We all go out to eat and everything was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it was
Yeah.
real bad, man, real bad.
Yep.
And so I spent a lot of my lifetime, man, trying to prove that mom was wrong. I can do this. I am successful. I'm not a, you know, I do have a purpose. I am here for a reason. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
And then,
Amen.
yeah, until I was able to really convince myself, Nate, because mom didn't need convincing, dad didn't need convincing. It was me that needed to
Yes.
to convince them.
Yes.
And once I started learning about working with my subconscious mind and getting that right, everything changed.
Yes. It's
Everything
all
changed for me.
mindset, guys.
100%.
Mindset.
Yeah.
You said 3 things there: mindset, big goals, and mentor. Those 3 things
Yeah.
right there, man, will change your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
It's incredible.
amazing,
Yeah.
man. So you went on to sell thousands of homes.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
okay, in 2009 you were number 7 out of 90, you said
9,800.
9800 agents?
And that was how many agents were in our MLS at the time. And Austin Business Journal would come up with the top 50. They aggregate the numbers, and then so I was like, when I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm good. High five, I'm good. What's my next? What I'm gonna tackle next? You know what
So
I'm
so
saying?
so you like
'Cause-
me. So you like me, you're like, "Okay, look, man, I feel like I know how to do this. Now I need to move on to the next thing." Is that what you do?
Exactly. Because it was a thing where the money, Nate. Because when you make money, you realize the money is not the end goal. It's just like a score. You know what I'm
You're
saying?
you're right, and I tell people this all the time. If I was doing it for the money, I would have quit a long time ago. Because once you
Long
get the
time ago.
money, it's like, okay, now what's next?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I made my first million over 20 years ago. So, I mean, I made millions of dollars since then. And money's good. I mean, I like money. I mean,
Yeah,
money gives me a lot of options, a lot of different
definitely
opportunities.
not allergic to it, are you?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. It's but it's one of those things where if I was just working for money, I would probably be doing something else. That's just not interest. I like adventure, man. I like
Yeah,
excitement,
you like to
and I
continue
like
to
a
grow.
challenge. I like
Nah,
a
man, you like
challenge.
to continue to
Absolutely.
grow, man. That's why I started off with
Absolutely.
single family homes and got into apartments, then got into bigger apartments, then got into
Yeah.
200 plus unit apartments, and then now we doing
Yeah.
hotels, and then now it's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
kind of got bored, know how to do hotels. Now we're doing a ground up development, and like, what's after that? Oh, well, they got this resort over here for. It's always a progression. It's
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
challenge, man.
Yeah.
It's learning, and that's what I love.
That's I'm a lifelong learner. Even now, Nate, I read a book a week. I'm a nerd that way. In some ways I'm not, but I'm a real nerd that way. And most of the books I've ever read is about business, you know. So I mean, you and I have multiple PhDs without the paper to go with it. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. No, no, no. We got the
Just
paper,
because.
baby. We got the paper.
Well, we got the paper to go with it. Yeah, we got that paper.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We just ain't got that. We ain't got
Yeah,
that Dave Ramsey paper. The one they want to hang on
right.
your wall. We ain't got. We don't need
Uh-huh.
all that,
We don't
man.
have that one. I don't need it. I don't need
Yeah.
it. I don't need it. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, wisdom is what you need, knowledge is what you need, but the paper is if that's what you want, you can get it, but it's not necessary. Put it
Hey,
that
so
way.
let me ask you this then. So after you found your success in being a realtor, you conquered that. You were like, man, I can do it. It
Yeah,
was I understand the what's next thing. Because it wasn't
yeah,
the money, it was a challenge. You realize, man, I can always do this and make money, but what can I do
right.
that's bigger than this, right?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely,
what was your
absolutely.
next move after that?
You know what I found, Nate, is that for me, paying it forward was like it gave me the biggest thrill of my life, man. I mean, I still remember I was in the coffee line at a big convention, and because I was 5 years at Remax, and then I got recruited to Keller Williams by Gary Keller. It just made
Wow,
sense.
really?
Yeah, his office called me up. They said Gary wants to meet with you. That's when when the Austin Business Journal came out, I was getting a lot of calls like that, right? And being, we live in the same town, Austin, Texas. Gary's, one part of town. He's in a really nice part of town. Let me put it that way. And so he wanted to meet with me. So we did a 30-minute meeting that ended up going for like 2 hours. We just hit it off. And he asked me, he said, Nolly, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I said, well, I see myself giving back, paying it forward, teaching, training, and coaching. And he wrote it down. I still have the paper to this day that he wrote it on this big white paper. And, well, he had like a consult with me. Really, he was recruiting me is what it was. But I was like, okay, I get to consult with Gary Keller. And he said, well, why don't you do that now? I said, what do you mean? He says, we have a coaching and training division, and I guarantee you, Diana Kokoska runs that division. And if you meet with her, she will hire you on the spot. And I knew, well, I didn't really know how hard it was to get hired in the coaching back then. But I met with her the next day. She hired me on the spot, and she was like, okay, we want you to coach and teach and train for you. And then she sent me the contract. And since I had been in IP, intellectual property, I had my attorney look it over, and he ripped it a new one, man. It was kind of embarrassing. It was kind of embarrassing, but basically I kept all my copyrights, all materials was mine, and it was a really sweetheart deal. Put it that way. It was a really good deal, a very fair, very nice deal the way he crafted it. And anyway, it was a good deal, and so I decided to do that, man. And I remember right out the gate, I started doing videos with the company, Tony DeCello and me. Tony was one of the head coaches there, ran the coaching division. And I remember being in this coffee line, man, and this guy comes up to me. He said, "Are you Knolly Williams?" And I was looking around, Nate. I was like, man, ain't too many black cowboys up in here. Yeah, that's me, Nolly. I didn't say it to him, but I'm thinking, because people all, they stop you all the time. Hey, could I pick your brain?
Yeah,
Could I
yeah,
buy
yeah.
you coffee? Could I buy you lunch? So I was like, okay, another one of these. So he proceeded to tell me, he said, man, he says, I said, do I know you? Have we met? He said, no, we've never met, but let me tell you what you've done for my family. He said,
Whoa.
I said, well, I did for your family. He said, yeah. He said, man, about a year ago, 12 months ago, I was on my way out of the business. My family was telling me to go get a real job. And he said, I watched that video that you did. you know which one with Tony DeSello? That, oh, I said, yeah, I know that. He said, I watched it, man, and I started studying what you talked about. I watched it over and over again. He said, in the past 12 months, I've done 60 deals, and more than that, man, I've been able to put food on the table for my family, and you helped me do that. And I looked
Man,
at
that
him, I
is
was like,
amazing,
man.
brother.
I from there, I looked at it, and you know, you get that all the time. I'm sure you get it all the time,
Now,
Nate.
hey, listen,
Because,
man, listen. When you just said that, it gave me chills, man.
oh my goodness,
That
it
gave me
gave me
chills
chills
because,
then.
man, not only like, man, we got so much in common, man. Um, and I tell people that you will not understand it until you get that.
You
And the
can't.
thing, you have to be out of survival state. If you're in survival
Right,
state,
right.
you can't even
Yeah, yeah,
comprehend um,
yeah.
the satisfaction that you get seeing other people because you're too busy trying to survive still. But once you
Right.
get out of that, man, and then it becomes, for me, I try to understand how people that have made it like me and you can spend the rest of their life just getting material items, and that's what they get satisfied with. Like, oh, I'm gonna go buy this
Yeah,
big yacht, and I'm like, nah, man, I want
yeah.
to see other people buy. I want to see
That's
other
it.
people win and crush it, man. So I
That's
know
it.
exactly what you're. I know, and I'll tell you about my story. My story that was just like that when I had somebody come up to
Yeah.
me that changed the trajectory of what I wanted to do and showed me what God's purpose was for me in life.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to hear that, man. Because I tell you, when I had heard it before, other people had told me similar, but somehow this one hit me, man. That I was actually for a year I've been feeding his family. That just hit me,
But but
and
but
I
but
call it.
but he was somebody that you could relate to. He was a brother, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, no, not even. I mean, I mean, you talking about a black dude or what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or what? Yeah, yeah. No, it was a white guy. And he would, I mean, and this is what I've come to understand, Nate, is that it's interesting because God has helped me. I mean, just like you, man, you attract all kinds, bro. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I have, and even though I tell people, I follow Christ. My teaching is Christ centered. Man, I got Hindus, I got Jewish, I've
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
Muslims that
Yeah.
follow, and I'm like, but they join my coaching club, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna be talking about Jesus. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We forgive you for that, but we just like how they just like they
Oh
just like
man.
being around me. And I'm like, well, what you like about me is Jesus, right? Well, whatever. Just keep talking.
Yep,
So
yep.
so what I discovered, man, is I like to teach, man. I like teaching, training, and the feeling. People don't understand this, Nate, because in my first business, I hoarded it, man. When I was in the music business, man, I wasn't trying to tell artists how to succeed. I was not trying to tell them how to do what I did. Now I can't give my secrets away fast enough. Like when I learn something new, I just want to do a YouTube video like, "Oh, hey, this is what I learned." And
Yep.
what you realize is that what it's paradoxical and it's counterintuitive, but what you start to realize is that the more that you give, the more you receive. It just works that
Can
way.
I interrupt you for a minute? You
Absolutely.
said something exactly what you're saying. Here's what I tell people. You said paradoxical or what is that? Man, I'm
Yeah.
good at math. I ain't really good in all
Par-
that spelling. All right, but look,
paradoxical. Yeah, it's a paradox.
okay, so what I tell people is you're more like a pyramid, okay? And
Mm,
so what happens is you teach people, you're always at the top of your pyramid, right? Your base gets bigger, right? The
yeah,
more you teach people.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
just
That's
giving
true.
back free knowledge, man, you're changing people's lives, man. And that is the key.
Absolutely.
Once you understand that, man, that is one of the secrets to success. Is not because see, you went from having a scarcity mindset to an
Yeah,
abundance mindset in doing that.
absolutely. Absolutely. You have to. Well, I mean, it's a choice, right? You don't have to, but it's a choice. And for me, it almost becomes a little bit selfish, Nate, because I call it the paycheck you'll never spend. Like that, the paycheck that guy gave me that day, I'll never spend that, man. I mean, it's just, and that's the satisfaction I get every day now, every single day, running my coaching club and doing different things that I'm doing to help people succeed at a high level, my YouTube channel. It's just, it's indescribable. If you're not doing it, you I couldn't even articulate And here's what I've come to understand, Nate. The reason that is for you and I, the reason why it is for others, is because this is the way that we are wired as Homo sapiens. This is how God wired us. He wired us to man. In Genesis, God said it is not good for man to be alone.
Mm.
He wired us. He wired us to need each other, and that's why you have a superpower that I don't have, and I have a superpower that you don't have
You
because
you know what
together
that
the
is,
forces.
don't you? It
Yeah.
talks
What is?
about it throughout the Bible. It's called your gifts and
Yeah.
talents. So your gifts
Absolutely.
and talents are irrevocable. That's the superpower that
That's
he's
right.
talking about,
That's
guys.
right. That's
You
right.
have to identify what that is about you. And even
Absolutely.
when Nully and when Nate we were in the streets, God gave us those gifts and talents, right? He'll
Absolutely.
never strip you of
Absolutely.
those, right? When I was a drug dealer, when you was a drug dealer, right?
Yeah.
Those were our gifts and talents we were using. But
Absolutely.
man, so um
Yeah.
once you
You're right.
understand that and
You're
what
right.
your gifts and talents are, man, it's just power right there.
It's
So, brother,
superpower. Yeah. Absolutely.
so now you're running this coaching program. You show people how they can triple their income in 3 hours a week, man.
Yeah. 3 hours a day. 3 hours
Oh,
a
three
day.
hours a
So
day. I'm sorry.
yeah, 3 hours a day. Yeah, I read the 4 Hour Work Week, and I like the book. I like Tim, and I like a lot of the concepts in there. But man, I like to work. I don't want to work 4 hours a week. I like working, man. And so what I've discovered though is that when you look, just like Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule, when you look at, I'll give you an example. When I looked at the listing business that I was in, okay, I deduced it down to 46 steps. The first step is to generate a lead. The second step is to make contact. The third step, and so on, all the way to when you close it out. And then there's some post-closing, things that happen. So there's 46 different activities on the life cycle of a listing. What I realized, Nate, was that 91.3% of those, so everything but about 3 to 5 or 6 tasks, I could delegate to others. Okay, they didn't even require a license.
Wow.
And so when I
So
realized that, I said,
out
well,
of you said 46,
yeah,
out of
46 steps.
46, you only have to
Yeah,
do 3 to 5.
3 to 5, 3 to 5 of those things. That's it, man. And so from
That's
from
leverage right
there,
there, baby.
it's leverage.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
That's levering up, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It really is because when I really looked at it and I started studying it, and I study my success and others' success as well. I realized that through leverage, which is people, systems, and tools, that's what leverage is, those three things: people, systems, and tools. And then if you want to leverage the Holy Spirit, now you're on a quantum level. that's
Yeah,
that's
there
a
you
whole
go,
different
man.
spirit.
Hey, that's the secret CEO. The secret. That's the Big Mac sauce, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're on a quantum. There's like something about this is just I can't put a finger on it. And so that's what I did, man. And I got to the point where I only focused on the most dollar productive activities, which was those 3 to 5 things in the life cycle of every property that I took. And so that got it to the point where I only had to work a few hours a day. You know what I'm saying? Because up to 90% of the things that I was formerly doing, it was like actually 91.3% of the things that were formerly on my plate were leveraged out to other people, and that allowed me to really grow my operation, my business. And I mean, my real estate business or my real estate practice got to the point where success is boring. I don't know other way to put it. A
Amen.
lot of people don't realize that is that when you learn how to stack chips and you unravel the game, you've already figured out all the rules and how to stack it. It's like, okay, what there's no
Well,
challenge now.
yeah. So how do people get a hold of you? How do they find your coaching program? Where do they find you at on YouTube, brother? How can they
Yeah.
learn from you how to lever up? So you're looking. What kind of people are you looking for to join your program?
So I work with entrepreneurs that have, for the most part, they've already had some level of success. And some of them are ultra successful financially, but they haven't conquered the other four. There's four bodies. We have a spiritual body, mental body, physical body, and an emotional body. And they have some kind of trauma or something in one of the bodies. And there's something missing in their business. Maybe they're still in the weeds. They're still in the muck and the mire and the daily day-to-day grind. And what I do is I help entrepreneurs, business leaders, and of course, authors, trainers, coaches, people like that, take them to a whole new stratosphere, a new level, by getting above the maze. It's kind of like the best way to picture it is, you remember that old picture of a labyrinth or a maze that you would go through, and as you're going through it, you don't know whether to go left or right because you're in the
Yep.
maze, you're in the weeds.
Yep.
Well, a lot of
Yep.
business owners, that's how they run their business. They're putting out small fires, they're taking care of the day to day, they're in the hustle and grind. And what happens is, if you position yourself 50, 60, 70 feet above the maze, now you can look down on your business and really orchestrate every single move with the different players that you leave down in the maze. And that's what I do. I help people, rise above the maze, entrepreneurs. And the best way to reach, if you can spell my name, which is hard to do, it's Knolly. It's hard to spell, but if you can spell it, you can find me. It's Knolly.com. YouTube is Knolly.tv, and my coaching is NollyCoaching.com.
Well,
So,
Knolly,
but if you
hey
go to,
man,
yeah,
I appreciate you coming on, brother. You guys make sure you go check him out. Man, I can't wait to get on your podcast, brother. This has been an amazing podcast, man. Thank you so much for your time, brother. And man, I look
appreciate it.
forward to seeing you. If I come down there to Puerto Rico, man, we going out fishing. What we doing?
We're gonna put you up, brother. We're gonna take you to eat fish, not catch it now. And we're gonna have a good time, bro. We got some nice beaches here in Luquillo, so you're gonna have a good time.
Man, well, listen, I love you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on, man. We're going to put the link below where you guys can go join his mastermind class, where you guys can find his YouTube videos. Thanks again, brother. Hey, man, I love you. Look forward to meeting you in person.
I love you too, Nate. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. God bless you, brother. Thanks for listening to Lever Up Your Life. If you could do me a huge favor and go lever up my reviews, leave me a 5-star review. I appreciate it. And if you guys want to keep the conversation going, reach out to me on Nate.Barger on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And get in our free Facebook group. We got over 200,000 members. BRRRR Invest. We'll see you in the next episode.